Hey War of the Vision fans, this is Nashtaters and welcome back to another episode of War of the Visions. So today I really want to talk about, is it really worth farming for the elf cloak? And also, should you be going kind of heads deep into the Siren raid? I'm going to be going over as much of the details as possible, covering the raid itself, and on top of it, all the different subtypes of the elf's cloak, and ultimately give you my personal suggestion whether or not the elf cloak should be farmed. So before we take a look at if the elf cloak is truly worth farming for, we must take a look at how the raid composition is made up and exactly what we need to bring, what kind of things we need to look out for, and ultimately come up with some strategies that will give us the best bang for our buck. Now, I actually found a website called WoTV.info. So if you're interested, please come support this website. This is the first time I actually stumbled upon this website, and it's being run by a gentleman or a woman named Meow. I'm not sure who this person is, but definitely got to give credit where credit is due, is making some great contributions to the War of the Visions community. As you can see, this person has already broken down all the info you will need for this specific raid. We can take a look at the stats of Siren. At maximum will be 130,000 HP, and wow, that's a lot of magic, a lot of attack, and lots of luck and lots of dex. Looks like move is only a 3 though. Resistance wise, it is definitely weak to the lightning element because she herself is of course of the water element. So it looks like the Siren is going to be strong against slash, strong against pierce, somewhat strong against strike, definitely weak against missile, and of course a little bit strength against magic. And essentially at the percentage as that it is, you're not going to be doing any sorts of ailments to her. Quick facts: weak to lightning and missile, as I just demonstrated, immune to steal time, immune to slash resistance debuff, and any element resistance debuffs. So this is going to be important. Units that perhaps could be used in people's minds will be Gilgamesh. He's not going to be of use in terms of using him for debuff purposes. AoE skill has a 50 chance to inflict sleep. This by far is one of the most damaging effects in the game, and we actually encountered her in the Porcelain Tower where she was doing this to us. So she has 260 luck, which actually become the standard for raid bosses, making her somewhat evasive. Even high-level units may have accuracy issues. So in this situation, we need to make sure that our weapon proficiency are maxed and possibly bring some vision cards that will give us additional accuracy. She is, however, weak to blind, which reduces her accuracy, and level 100 Siren has a 70 brave faith in Japan. Let's take a look at some of the recommended units. Her AoE has a high chance to inflict speed. So sleep is very nasty. So it's better to bring some following units that is immune to her sleep regardless of faith. Frederica comes to mind, and Nivlu. So again, if you have those units, it is awesome to bring these units along. Now, if you do choose to use slash units, Venera is a solid option because of the fact that she has armor cleaver. Those are all viable options, but at the end of the day, most of us probably don't have all of these units. So it's important to kind of nitpick through this specific guide to figure out what's best for you. Now, it's actually interesting to note that the author actually provided a few other information. Baelo's TMR armor, force armor, provides 25% sleep resistance, which is very good if you have units that are not going to be fully immune to sleep, such as Orlando. Now, if you do worry about sleep, there's a formula here. I'm not going to bother reading it, but roughly speaking, you're going to have roughly 30% chance of being slept if your faith is only 50. Now, obviously, you don't want to bring any units that has high faith or fire units because they're naturally going to be susceptible to damage and, of course, asleep. The last thing I want to actually talk about from this specific website is Theory Multi-Team Comps. A mix of Frederica and Niv with Bells will most likely probably be the ideal in my opinion. A mix of Frederica with Niv and with Orlando with Bells. And of course, you have 4 Venera, 4 Orlando, 4 Glaciala, 1 Yerma with 3 Lucius. Of course, this person keeps adding the fact that if you bring Bells. I think at this point, a lot of players probably don't even want to take people to specific raid encounters unless their characters have the bells equipped. It is a shame that we are come to this point, but hopefully majority of us should have the bells on their accounts. So let's go ahead and finally talk about Elf Cloak and if this accessory is worth farming. Now, if you're gonna be doing the raid and you don't see a lot of success because you don't have a lot of those units that we talked about before, it is possible that you may not necessarily be getting this specific accessory to maximize +5, and in my opinion, that is okay. I think the best way to approach this game in terms of raid is to have the mentality that you're going to look in terms of long term. You don't necessarily need to farm every single item that is presented to you for the very first time to +5, because generally speaking, the majority of the player base out there simply do not have all the units or cards or equipment to deal with every single raid for the first time. Hopefully the game will cycle itself over the long haul, but as of now, it seems like the game likes to give you opportunities to get something from the past, but not necessarily repeating the raids, which is great because you don't actually have to have every single unit for every specific raid. If you're dealing with a raid, perhaps say 2 months down the road, and you have all the necessary units to conquer that specific raid, perhaps just take advantage and gather all the materials for something that's being offered at that time to finish off a product that you're looking for. For example, this raid is allowing us to get the Thermasa. I think if you're looking to try to complete this to either a +4 or maybe make finally your +5 or maybe make more lower numbered Thermasas, it's a good idea to perhaps just to take on this raid to try to accomplish that goal. So with that all being said, let's see if Elf Cloak is worth farming for by looking at its stats. As you can see, at the Vital, it gets a solid 640 HP, which I believe is the highest number you've seen on an accessory up to date. This is going to be Dodge, which will be 448 and 14 Evasion. And of course, this is going to be Shield, which would be 448 HP and 16 Defense. All of them comes with a critical avoidance of 14. Now, the thing to think about this is, what exactly are you planning to build this accessory for? And maybe think about which units you're building it for. Meow here has already pointed out a few things for us. Has highest HP, great for Dreamforce builds. Evasion and defense are incredibly high for an accessory. Confusion resistance extremely niche, which should be, right? Anytime you have something that has specific resistances, is always going to be niche. Up to 10% pierce, which is only accessory pierce resistance at the time of writing. And critical avoidance is not very useful, arguably one of the least useful stats. So which subtype do I recommend? I personally think it depends on a couple of factors. If you're looking for the Dreamforce build, obviously the 640 would be the best. But keep in mind, the game likes to use the stacking thing, which essentially if you have armor that has higher HP than this one, then you're only going to be utilizing 50% of the HP of the Elf Cloak, or vice versa. So no matter how you look at it, and this is a UR equipment. So to maximize the 640 HP, from given the past history of a lot of the JP players' feedback, seems to be very difficult to do. So perhaps this is going to be the best bang for your buck in terms of going for Vital. But the other thing to keep in mind is, if you're going for Vital, you don't necessarily have to go for 640. Maybe go for, say, I don't know, 480. And if you took only half of that, you're going to be still gaining 240, considering the fact that most likely you have a maximized HP armor. So that's something to really think about for you in terms of building. If you're thinking about going for Dodge, personally, I don't know if this is going to be the best, because again, it only takes what, 50 or 30% of that stat minus whatever you already have that's greater than that. So for example, if you're using a hat, which will have maybe 19 evasion, this one will ultimately only give you 7 evasion, or if that's only 30% of that, that's a different number, but much, much less than, of course, the 7. So no matter how you look at it, you're most likely not going to be using this for purely evasion's sake. Maybe you're actually just going for either, well, HP in this case, which will be, again, potentially half, or perhaps the defense. Now, the 16 defense on a Cloak, in my opinion, I don't think has been seen on Global, so I think I would recommend the shield, because at least now you cannot think about too much of a defensive build on your armor and maybe go for some other stats. Alright, now that we literally gone over every single detail we could think of for the raid, let's think about time versus value. Now, in my last Friday Free Thinking, I talked about value and if it's truly worth it if you're thinking about dumping your most valuable resource into something as an investment, and at the end of the day, the product you give, is it truly worth the spending? Personally, I'm not a huge fan of raids, period. However, that being said, if you're not going to be one of those hardcore players where you're going to be playing perhaps 12 to 16 hours a day, or maybe somewhere hovering around the 10-hour per day grind, I highly suggest just kind of casually approach this situation and farm as much as you can. Meaning, well, just trying to get as many resources as possible. Personally, at the point of time where we're playing this game, approaching 1 year anniversary, it seems like the rainbow fragments of thoughts and the rainbow spheres are not going to be as important anymore as, say, when you first started playing the game many months ago. Obviously, if you're a beginning player, take the opportunity to maybe perhaps kill enough of the raid bosses just to get those rainbows, and simply not think too much about the UR equipment at this time until your account gets much stronger. But I always feel like when you're at the point where you're playing this game for about 10 months now, maybe it's better just to go for the equipment and this mats to create those equipment, because those are going to add way more power level to your account than simply farming more rainbow elements. Either way, no matter how you do it, I think this is one of those situations perhaps you can take the opportunity to finish your thermosas, or maybe your platinum helm, or just simply gather enough materials for future items. Either way, whatever decision you make, I don't think it's going to be the wrong one, because only you as an individual have full control of your most valuable resource, time. I think that's all the time I have for this video. I hope you find this video entertaining. If you do so, please hit the subscribe button, as it will help this channel go a long way. And as you guys know, time is your most valuable resource, so spend it wisely. Until next time, take care of yourself and all your loved ones. Nashtaters and his family out of here. Peace.